In this video, I wanted to show how you could take some data that you're collecting via form. I have a simple form here, just some brands and some sales amounts, and I'm collecting this data via the form. So if you can see here, my last row is 15. As I submit data, I'm going to submit another thing. Maybe we made another sale for Burberry, $200, and submit. And you come back and look here and you see I've got a new sale there. What I want to be able to do here is have a summary sheet that in real time will break down the amount of sales I have for each one of my brands. And if this was happening over time, I could also break my sales down for time, for dates, for time of day, and so forth. But let's start by making a summary sheet. I'll make a new sheet here. I think I'll just call it summary. And I'm going to write a query. And notice I've already set up this. Columns A, B, C is a named range called sales data. So I'm going to query sales data. So let's just start equals query. And sales data, we can start typing. It pops right up. And then we're going to select, and let's just select B, which is my brand, and let's just do that and see what we get. So we get a list of basically all the brands, all the rows, and the brands. That doesn't help us much. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to select B, and I'd like to do a sum of C. That's my sales amount. And notice if I do that, I'm going to get an error, because if I'm using an aggregate, I need to group by. So let's simply add a group by B. And now we get a brand, a list of all of our brand names, and a sum of their totals. But notice we have this blank row. So what we have to do is we have to sum C where B is not null, because I don't want that blank row in there. And when I add that, select B, sum C where B is not null, meaning I'm looking over here because my range is all of A, B, C, and I have all those blanks. I got rid of the blanks by putting in where B is not null, and group by B. Well, that helps a lot. I don't like the word sum amount, and I don't like the way that this is showing up as not as new currency. So I'm going to add a couple other things. We're going to group by B. We're going to label sum C. We're going to use the label function sum C, and we're going to call this total sales by brand. That's what that's going to be. We have to finish out with my single quote. And now we have total sales by brand. I can widen this out. I still don't have my formatting the way I'd like that. So let's just also add a format clause. We're going to format sum C as single quote, and we want a $sign. We want a couple of pounds, comma, pound, a zero, finish out, and now, must have made a mistake there. Not a O, rather a zero. So now my formatting is done as well. That's great. What I'd like to be able to do next is have this show up as, I'd like to see what the total is. Now I could, do this, and I could highlight and see that I've got a sum of 9,720, but I want that to show up here in this row. And if I have dynamic data and I was to add a new brand, if I did a manual summary here and I added a new brand, it would break my query. So I'm going to do this with array literals so that I can have this be a dynamic total here if I were to add a new brand. So let's take a look for a minute at what I mean by using array literals. I'm going to do an equals, and I'm going to do a open curly bracket. I'm going to do a 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, comma 5, close my curly bracket, and what I get is an array in these rows. Now, if I wanted to continue that, if I use a semicolon, this is going to give me a second row, and then I could do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that one formula creates for me this array, and it creates the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The semicolon drops me to a new row, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I could put anything I want in there. It could be 15, and notice that changes to that. But what happens if I just try to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? I get an error, meaning that the array literal had to have values, had to have the same number of columns. So I have to have the same number of columns. So that's array literals. So let's take this. Let's see how we can use this function and add it in with this so that I can get this query would be my first array literal, and then I want to drop down a row and have 2 columns and add that as a total. So the first thing we'd have to do is wrap this in a curly bracket. And actually, if I do that, everything still works, nothing really changes. So I've added that in a curly bracket. Now, I think what I'll do to make this easier, I want to, in my array literal, I use a semicolon, and that's going to drop me down to a new row. I'm going to press Control Enter on my Mac so I can get down a row. Now what I want this next array literal to do is I want to create a new row. That move over there. And I want this to be, the first row I want to be total. Well, actually I might want it to say grand total. Okay, and then the second row, or second column, because remember we have 2 columns, and they have to match, is going to be a query. So we're going to write another query. This is going to be sales data. And we're going to select, and this time we're going to select sum C. And we'll end that. We'll end our query, and we need to end that array literal. And then you can see the next array literal is the closing the first array. So let me put an enter on that, and we get an error. And the reason is, let's go back and just take this. Let me just take this query. I'm going to copy that. And let me just paste this query over here and add an equals, of course, in front of it. So notice when you get this query, you get an extra row because it puts in a label. And so I need to get rid of that, and the way to get rid of that is to label sum C as a blank. And now I just get that numeric without the label. So I need to apply that, and I could actually I can go ahead and take what I've done here just to save myself a little trouble, copy that, come over here, and what I just need to do here is in this query, without the equal sign, I need to paste that. So there's my query with the label of sum C as blank, and now I have this total. So what you can see as I build something like this, I can get rid of this and I can get rid of this. If I was making this into a summary page, I might decide to clean this up a little bit, maybe put a little chart in there. But so I might do something like this. Go ahead and make this bold, and maybe make this bold. And now notice I missed something here. I got to come back because I don't have my format. So I also want to format this. Format. I better put a space there just to make it more readable. We're going to format sum C as dollar, pound, pound, comma, pound, 0, and that, and now I have my grand total. So as I add more sales, notice it was 97.20, I believe. If I add a new sale in here, let's say it's a Ralph Lauren, and it's a $700 item, and I submit, I come back, and now I can see it's 10,420. So my grand total is growing. Now, if by chance my my brands had other, and let me come back to my form now and submit another response. Now notice I have an other. So take a look here. If I add a new brand, dynamically add a new brand, I'm going to call this J. Crew, and we sold a $500 J. Crew item. Now notice that's going to automatically give me J. Crew and notice my grand total drop. You can see that because this line here is bold, and let's get rid of that. We can see this bottom line grand total is growing as we added new data. Then dynamically, if I wanted to, I might clean this up. I might get rid of my grid lines. I might decide I want to make a real quick little chart. And I could format this chart in a lot of different ways, but let's just say I want something to look like this. And now I can have my, what I might call a dashboard. I could decide to get rid of all these blank spaces here and maybe get rid of everything to the right. I'm doing Command Shift right arrow, highlight it all, and delete columns J through Z. And now I have a nice dashboard. I could even decide to do something like this and make this bold black, and then my chart sits in here. Maybe I do want to come in here and just customize my chart real quick on my series and go ahead and put in my data labels so I can see. And then I notice if I do that, I might need to also change my horizontal axis and get a maximum of, say, 5,000 or something. And then I can read that chart a little more. And then this chart could be put on a website or something, and it would be dynamically updating as you added brands or added dollar amounts to your brands. Alternatively, we could take this formula here and we could move it down a couple of rows, and it changed, added a bunch of rows there, but let's take a look at that. And what we might do up here then is go ahead and we could put in a query, or I could do equals query, and again, sales data, and select. We're going to select sum C. And we're going to label sum C blank, and missed something there. Select sum C, label sum C, And there's my total. So I could do I could just label this grand total, and we could have this as a dynamic top line here. I could just, in this case, just label that. I could bring this up, make it bold, maybe make it stand out a little bit, format it however you want. So a couple of different ways that we could go ahead and add a label at the top with our grand total, and also have the grand total sum at the bottom with this simple query formula. Thanks for watching.